All right. Welcome back to the next episode of 100 Apps, 100 Hours, where we build or rebuild some of your favorite apps or publicly fail trying. I'm your host, Bryant Gillespie, developer advocate at Directus, and today we have the mother of all clones, AirBnB. This was actually going to be one of the first episodes that I was going to record for this series. To be honest, I got a little scared. Airbnb has a ton of functionality on the front end. We have authentication, we have listings, you have two different types of users in that you have folks who are listing their properties, folks who are booking those properties, you have messages, you have reviews. There's a ton of things just underneath the surface. So I'm curious to see how far we can get in an hour. I don't want to bite off more than I could chew, but should be entertaining nonetheless, right? All right, so if you've tuned into the series before, you'll know we have two rules. The first is you have 60 minutes to plan and build, or I have 60 minutes to plan and build. If you've got 60 minutes, if you're watching along, maybe you want to build with me. It's great. No more, no less. That's all we get. And then the second rule is kind of the anti-rule. Use whatever you have at your disposal. AI, ChatGPT. I've got a Nuxt front-end application starter set up that already has some plumbing to connect to my Directus instance, and I have a blank Directus project. That's what I've got. We're going to try to build this Airbnb clone. Let's get started. All right, so we'll start the clock here, and away we go, right? So I'm going to pull up the Airbnb website if I can actually figure out how to work my computer, and let's just poke around and see what we can find, right? One of the first things that I usually like to do when I'm trying to break down functionality for an app is take a look at the navigation, right? Airbnb has this concept of stays versus experiences now, so we have properties or listings or something like that. We have experiences, which are tours and tastings and actual things that you can do. So that should be an interesting dynamic. I think we'll mostly probably just stick to the properties part of it, like the listings. One of the other things that I always like to take a look at, I can go in and check the network requests, and try to suss out what some of the data model looks like for all these different things that we're querying on the front end. So it looks like there is a very, very interesting set of queries they're using. If I look into the actual property values, we've got this very detailed data that we're returning and using potentially for our layout. I don't really know how helpful this is going to be, right? And to my knowledge, I don't know that Airbnb has a public API that I can use to kind of introspect the schema. So I'm just playing it by ear here, right? So on every episode, before I actually build, I like to do a bit of planning. And first, let's start with what type of functionality we're going to try to achieve out of this. I certainly want to get the back end data model built for this. We'll map that out in just a moment. On the front end, maybe we want to display a listing detail page and maybe a listing index page. Let's call that our original goal. If we got a stretch goal, maybe we want to let folks booking pages, booking properties, sending messages, something like that. So I think these three pieces here will be plenty to chew on for an hour. Let's try to map this application out. And I really like Figma, FigJam. The combo is great for mapping out things like this. We'll just do no fill. All right, so as far as our data model, Naming things is always tricky. So are we going to call this listings? Is it properties? That's going to be our main collection, right? This is our main table. Not 100% sold on what it's going to be yet. We've probably got users in the system. So we'll have our users, and Directus is going to actually take care of that for us with the Directus users collection that it bootstraps whenever we actually create our instance. What else do we have? We've got reviews that are going to be included, and it can be attached to the individual listings. Looks like we have categories as well, right? Tiny homes, countryside. I don't know if those are going to be tags. I guess you could be a countryside and a tiny home. So that could be like a many to many relationship. So let's just call those tags. Great. We could tag those onto a property. We have bookings, right? So you've got a calendar of bookings for a property or a listing. We can make those little relationships. Just draw some nice looking arrows, basically. That's all we're doing here. Then we've probably got a junction table for that many to many relationship. Cool. Just drag that out of the way. We've got our reviews. Tags. Okay. Listing tags. All right. What else? If we open up filters, we could see things like the type of place, the price range, bedrooms, number of bedrooms, property type, the amenities. That's kind of a nice bit of functionality. How are we going to deal with that? What are the booking options, host language? If we go to the actual detail page for a property, right? We've got a gallery of multiple images. We've got a host that could be our user, I guess. We might have a host profile or something like that that we attach so that we don't pollute our users' collection. We've got a schedule, we've got the reviews, we got a map. Yeah. Okay, I feel pretty good about this. Let's just draw a couple more arrows, just for the sake of arrows. Let's actually start building this out. Cool. All right, so I'm going to drag this over, and as you can see over here on the left, I've got my blank instance of Directus. What are we going to call this main one? Properties, to me as a developer, I'm thinking like properties of an object or something like that. So I'm going to call this listings. If anybody from Airbnb is watching this, hey, maybe tell me what kind of schema you're using on the back end. All right, so I'm going to create a new collection called listings. We're going to use the generated UUID. Is this a published listing? Yes, probably. So we'll keep status. We'll have the created on, updated on, user created, etc. And let's go through and start modeling this out. All right, so if I look, we've got a H1. This is probably just the title of the listing. Great. What happens to our URL? It looks like they don't use fancy URLs or like a slug for this listing. It's just actually by the ID. And it looks like it's rooms. I could have just looked at the URL. I kind of like listings better just because they are using, they're listing whole houses on here as well, right? Not just a room. So, cool. We will have a, this looks like it's calculated. What are the other things that we need? The number of guests, the number of bedrooms, the number of bathrooms, right? These are all going to be inputs. We can support how many guests. Let's say max guests. That sounds like a good one. One of the other nice things here is the ability inside Directus, if you're using it for your content management, you can add these helpful notes for your users. So how many guests total can stay at this property? And I can also translate these into other languages, which is really nice for our international users. All right, that looks good. This will always be an integer. We don't support half people here at AirBnB. That's what we'll call this one. So max guess, we have number of bedrooms, right? I can just duplicate that particular field and say bedrooms quantity, bedroom, number of bedrooms, like bedrooms quantity. Sounds great. I may go in and edit this individual note though. How many total bedrooms? Cool. We'll go through and let's do bathrooms quantity. Again, and naming is probably, I won't say it's half the battle, but it is a lot of the battle in development, is coming up with names that make sense and have meaning. So we've got our title, we've got our max guest, we've got our bedrooms. We'll have a host for that. So we'll deal with that in a moment. I can see we've got a nice description here. This looks like it supports WYSIWYG content. So we'll go ahead and add the WYSIWYG editor within Directus. We'll call this the description. Could be the about section. I see about this space here. We'll save this. Great. And then we have this, what this place offers, right? So this is an interesting one where we've got items that are not included. We've got items that are included. There's a couple different ways we could actually manage this within our data model. We could, I like hard code this as like JSON values or something like that, where we have a list of these objects. We could also set it up as a separate relationship, so you could add these features, or I'm assuming what we would call features, to this particular listing. Maybe come back to that one. Let's keep rolling down. We have our reviews. We have the address. So we could have the street address. Let's go ahead and fill that up. Street address. We could do this as street address 1. Street address 2, just in case we need it. What else do we have? City. Region. State. I think it's region if we're being international friendly outside of the US. And then we have like postal code. Great. All right. Maybe we clean this up a little bit. I'm going to make this half width. When I'm inputting these things, I want to make it look really nice. I am going to go in and use the detail group within Directus just to get a nice visual. So we'll say detail group. Let's call this address info. On the front end, whenever we call the API, we would either make sure we omit this address so nobody can find this property without actually booking it. We want to keep that private, or we may not even send that to the front end at all. But obviously you want to store that. And we could, even potentially like obfuscate this somehow. So we've got a host. We'll come back to that. House rules. Let's take a look at this. Pets allowed. No smoking. Check in, check out. Yeah, so we're going to need details on check in, check out. We've got safety and property. So we've got safety devices. Got a cancellation policy. Before you book, partial refund. Okay. Yeah, let's tackle just like safety really quickly. So we'll go in. This seems something like pretty simple. Let's go in and this may be a good use case for our check boxes inside Directus. So safety, what do they call these? Safety and property. Let's just call it safety devices. We'll say carbon monoxide. Then we have a smoke alarm installed. Great. And for the value, I can even change this to something like CO2 or CO, right? Carbon monoxide is single CO. Yeah, let's just leave it there. Great. I'm trying to think of what other safety devices we'd have on a property, right? Let's just check out one of these other cabins. Scroll down to the bottom. Potential for noise. So there is some road noise. This is kind of like a extra metadata as well. Safety devices. Let's just finish this out. Great. We could do something interesting here where like property info is just text and an explanation, right? Maybe we even have a potential icon for this. So let's use the repeater field inside Directus. It basically just stores as JSON data, but I can create an array of objects here that can contain basically almost anything that I want. But again, it just gets stored as JSON within the database. So we'll call this property info. And for the fields, it looks like we've got an icon, right? Icon. We'll call the field icon. We have a string. That's the type of the field. And then we actually have an icon interface inside Directus where you can choose lovely icons from a dropdown. All right, next we'll have a label or a title for this. Let's just go with label. That'll be a string as well. We'll use just a standard input interface. And what's next, right? We've got a description, label, description. Yeah, close enough. And this will just make a text box. I don't think we need WYSIWYG input here. We'll just do text area. I said we didn't need it, and then I clicked it. Got a little click happy there. Great. Okay, so now we've got safety devices. We got property info. We could even call this, we could add this in our detail group as well. Right? We could call it safety property. Safety and property. Great. And we can even add a little safety sign. Great. Health and safety. Beautiful. So I'll just drag those within this. And we are starting to build a great looking data model for this. All right. Let's cover check-in, check-out info. So we can use the date time field. Do we want, I guess we just want time, right? Check-in time. We will, let's do that half width. We'll do check out time. Cool. We've got those two items. Was there any other details on check-in? Self check-in with keypad. Maybe there's like a check-in type. Let's take a look at a couple other listings and see what we can find. Boom. Where did you go? There we go. Self check-in with a lockbox. Yeah, so this is probably just like some text. Checkout type. Great. Again, if I wanted to group these together, I could add a nice little detail group. Checkout. Let's call it house rules, right? House rules. Great. We'll put that under house rules. Check out, check in, check out type. Okay. If I could actually click and drag the way I want. Let's move that up. We've got the address info. We've got the house rules. We've got the bedrooms, max guests, pets allowed. That could be a Boolean attribute or a toggle here. It just stores as Boolean in the database. So our pets allowed. Default, let's say no is the default. Pets allowed as the label. Great. All right, we'll shrink this to half width. I'm getting really anxious to see what this actual form looks like once we get done mocking out our data model here. We've got quiet hours, right? So how do we adjust for this? Do we have a range of dates inside Directus? We do not. Quiet, so we could do something like quiet time start, date time. Oh, nope, we just want time. Date time, enter dates. We're gonna have to delete that one. All right, let's just go back. Let's try again. We just want the time, right? We're not really concerned with the date. Quiet time. Quiet time start. Quiet time end. Great. Isn't data modeling fun, guys? We'll put that in our house rules. Quiet time. Does anybody allow smoking in their properties? Do we even really need to concern ourselves with this, right? Additional rules. This doesn't look like it actually supports WYSIWYG content. So we can add a new field for that. We'll just call it additional rules. We'll just call it a text area. That's going to store as text in the actual database. And one of the important things to know, hey, as we're going through and modeling this data out, if I were to pull up this SQL database right now, and I could show you that in just a moment, Directus is actually going through and mirroring every change that I'm making here inside the data studio, inside our actual database as well. So we go to house rules. We'll just clear that up. Whoa. Too many. There we go. All right, I need to adjust the sensitivity on the mouse. But if I open up Table Plus, and just to give you guys a preview of what's going on behind the scenes here. Uh-oh. What am I doing wrong? Connect to the database. Detour. Let's check my Docker Compose. 8055. Those ports should be exposed. Oh, I see what the problem is. I've got another instance of Postgres SQL running through Docker. All right, so if I open this up, you can see I've got a listings table here. And if I look at the structure, you can see we've got those same columns that we were mapping inside Directus. And you can see the data type is being appropriately applied. Likewise, if I were to add a column to the database here in Table Plus or via SQL, Directus would introspect those changes and actually show up inside the app itself. So it is a beautiful mirroring relationship. It's I love it. It's one of my favorite features of Directus. I know I say that a lot. What other things do we need to offer here? HDTV, mountain view, valley view. I don't know what this looks like behind the scenes when you're actually mapping these out. I would be curious to see, right? Free washer, free dryer in unit versus free washer, free dryer out of unit, outside of unit, right? We've got a garden view. I'm assuming this is probably just like some type of JSON data or something that's being stored. Maybe free washer in unit. Let's go back. Can we actually filter based on this data? Can you filter based on... Okay, so you can filter on some of this. It doesn't look like you can filter on all of it. Like, hey, does it have a in-unit versus a non-unit? Trying to think of the best way to account for these. I'm not sure exactly how I want to do it, right? So we've got this type of place that we might set up as well. Let's do that. We're going to do the type of place, and then we have a property type. Let's just call this one type. Okay, we'll make this a string. And instead of using an input, let's use radio buttons. I think we just have a room or an entire home, right? Destinations, guess. You could filter a room or entire home, basically. Yeah, that works for me. All right. So we'll say this is a room. And one of the other cool little things that I'll show you while we're here, I can translate this content inside Directus. If I use a $T and use this key and I hit enter, I can go in and add translation strings for any of the languages, which is really nice, so that whoever is using this Directus instance, if they are editing content and they go in and they happen to be French or Canadian, you guys speak a different language up there in Canada, right? No, I'm kidding. And then we'll call this the entire home. But this translation feature is really nice. Only recently started digging into it. So the value we'll call entire home. And then if I want to, what I could do is go into our translations here inside the Directus admin. I can create a custom translation, and I could say entire home, pick my English language. Great. Oh, you do have different English up there in Canada. And I could say, I could call this Bryant's home if I wanted to, right? It doesn't really matter, but if I were to go in and look at this data model now, right, for the type, I could see it's a room, or I could see it's Bryant's home. So that's really nice in that I can apply these translations for any of the languages that our team may speak. Entire home. Great. What do they say here? Room in a home. Right. So if we create a new one for room, we'll go English US, a room in a home. Great. All right, so we go back, we create a listing. Now we can see we've got two options there. We've got an entire home, we've got a room in a home. Cool. Let's continue finishing this up. Price ranges could be interesting, right? I'm trying to think of how we would set this particular data up, because I'm imagining this varies based on like, is it a Monday night versus a Friday night versus a Sunday night? How many days that you're staying? Can we actually Airbnb your home? Blah, blah, blah. Airbnb setup. I guess I could log into my account. Don't look at my passwords. Let's see what it looks like when we actually Airbnb a home. Tells about your place, start on your own. This seems to be a nice little onboarding flow as well. Yeah, I mean, my house is a castle, right? Great. Entire place, room, a shared room. Okay, so that's one that we forgot as well, right? A room, and then we have shared room. So again, we'll do that $T. And a colon. That allows us to store that as a translatable string. Great. This is going to be the entire place. Enter my address. I'm not going to do that here. Let's do What's Yankee Stadium, right? Let's do the address for Yankee Stadium. Bronx. Great. Confirm the address. Is this pin in the right spot? Do they have any validation on this? I guess they don't, right? So I wonder if this goes up to what? I don't know how many people Yankee Stadium seats, but we'll call it 16 plus, right? So we've got the number of guests, bedrooms, beds. There's something else that we need to add here, right? Bed quantity. Great. Should have done this to begin with, right? Let's add another group because this is going to get messy. A lot of fields on this one, and again, this is why I didn't want to bite off too much on this actual one. So we'll call this what are we going to call this? Basics? Listing info? Yeah, that's fine. We won't get too carried away here. So we've got the type, we've got the listing info. Just move that up. Max number of guests, bedrooms quantity, bathrooms quantity, are pets allowed. We'll hoist title and description up here. Let's say we've got 8 beds, 8 bedrooms, maybe 5 bedrooms. Again, no idea how many of those are inside Yankee Stadium. Make your place stand out. Okay. Let's look behind the scenes and see, is this making any calls here? We have parking. It is using React. So I wonder, okay, if we amenities, can we see any of those here? I don't see them. I really don't want to dig through each of these components here to try to figure that out. Can you actually do like the view thing in the React DevTools? Oh, I guess you can. All right, so what's our consumer, provider, value, history? Yeah, I'm not a React guy. Let's just not even bother diving through it, right? There's our safety items like first aid kit, smoke alarm, etc. Standout amenities. So these are just the basics, right? And you might even go through and add separate fields for these things. So we could do, again, the detailed group for this. Maybe this one starts closed. We'll call this amenities. These also could be like a separate database table that we add. And that way we could continue adding those. Yes, no, the other. Again, not knowing behind the scenes the importance of this, maybe we add these as separate things so we could filter them. So let's go in and we'll add a new collection. We'll call it amenities. Amenities. Ooh, probably need some spell checking there. Amenities. Cool. All right. All of this is not really concerned myself with. We have an icon for the amenity. Gotta have an icon. Very design oriented here myself. Recovering designer, as I like to refer to myself. We have a name for this amenity. Maybe we've got something like a key for it as well. I don't know. And then, is there some type of explanation for these? You may have something like a description for it as well. Cool. Good enough. Now what we're going to do is link these two together, right? So inside Directus, what I can do is basically create a many-to-many relationship, because one property could have many amenities and many amenities could be linked to many properties. I think that's a great explanation of amenities and many-to-many relationships. Directus makes this super simple to create these relationships. So on our listings collection, we'll just call this whoa. Need to work on my spelling for sure. My wife works in the school system as well, so maybe she can give me some help. We don't want to allow duplicates. We want to show a link to that specific item. If I open up advanced field creation mode, I can actually control the name of this junction collection. That's going to create a junction table in our SQL database. I'm okay with this, right? And if I wanted to, I could add a reverse many-to-many relationship on the amenities collection back to the listings. What we may do is add a sort field here as well. For the display, we'll show related values. We can come back in and clean that up in just a moment. But great, we've got our amenities here. Let's move that up to the top. What are the other things that we need to add? Some photos of the castle. You need 5 photos to get started. I'm feeling pretty confident here. I'm just going to close this out. Exit. We'll go back to the Airbnb website. And there was one thing that I forgot what I was going to add here. Is property type. That's what it was. So we'll go in. I'm just going to duplicate this one called type. And we'll add property type. Duplicate. That's, of course, going to drop down here to the bottom, and I'll just bring it back up. Property type, let's just clear out these values. So it probably didn't need to duplicate that. But we have a house. I'm not going to mess with the translation strings here. Just know that's available to you if you are working with Directus. We'll call this an apartment. Apartment. Guest house. For those of you who do have a guest house, amazing. Take advantage of it. Exploit it on Airbnb. We have the hotel, and that looks pretty good. Cool. At some point, we'll probably have to deal with the pricing thing, but for now, we'll just skip it. All right, so I'm feeling pretty confident about this. Let's go in and flesh out the other items in our data model. We spent a ton of time data modeling this out, but there's a lot of fields on the listings. So we got reviews. We have tags. So let's create reviews. What does the review structure look like inside Airbnb? So we're certainly going to want a user created. We'll probably have a status on the review. Hey, is this published or not? For the reviews, okay, it looks like we have an overall rating. We have cleanliness, accuracy, location, value. All right, so I think we have a slider field that it could be a good representation for this. Let's call it overall rating. Great. We'll duplicate that one. We can call it cleanliness. Cleanliness, yeah, I think so. Looks great. Let's duplicate this. We'll have the accuracy and so forth. Just missed that one, didn't I? Duplicate. All right, so you kind of get the picture there. We have a user. We have some actual text. It doesn't look like, to me, that doesn't look like WYSIWYG text. Not that it matters. The WYSIWYG and the text area interface both store the data as text inside the database. So we'll call this, what, content, or this is our message. And I'm not sure if this is like other platforms where you get a response as well, where if somebody leaves you a crappy review, you can respond to it. So we got reviews. Let's link those to our listings. All right, again, that's going to be a many-to-many relationship. So we'll say reviews. We'll do reviews. All this is going to be happening for us. One thing that I see a lot of people miss is this sort field on the relationship page so you can actually sort these items in the order that you want. Probably not necessary for reviews because you're just going to do those probably based on recency or the actual date. What else do we have? In our original model, we had host profile, we had our reviews, we had our tags. Let's go in and add tags. Great. I'm not really concerned with any of this. We'll just call it a tag name. Okay. And again, we're going to be using our many to many relationship because we could have many tags on many different listings. Sweet. Great. Anything else that we need? Let's do a host or hosts, as we'll call them, or we could call this host profiles maybe, because we're going to link these back to the Directus users collection. Again, just so we're not gumming up or and making a mess out of the system table. But behind the scenes, if I pull back up my database, you'll see that all of your SQL data here, all your data in your SQL database, it remains pure because all of the metadata that Directus uses, it stores in its own namespace tables. The one that kind of sits in the middle of that is Directus users. This is what you get out of the box. You get the authentication. We have the permissions that are tied to this, so you get rule-based access control, which is really nice, right? You get all of this out of the box. I hate to junk up my system tables, though. So what I usually do in situations like this is just add a link back to those. So instead of a many-to-many, we'll just do like a many-to-one. And we'll call this our user. For the related collection, it's going to be Directus_users. And I'm going to go into field advanced creation mode. We'll call this host profile. And one other thing I'm going to do is make this value unique. Great. Okay, so now we have our host profile. What does this look like? Santa is our host. Do we have any other details? Let's pull somebody else up. I'll click the same one. Let's see what kind of data we're storing on the host profile. All right, probably an image on the host profile. Great. So we'll just add an image, or we could call this avatar. And how are we doing on time? Looks like we've got roughly like 15 minutes left. We're doing a lot of data modeling on this. We've got our user avatar. We've got a description. Great. All right, let's go in and we've got the details for that. Let's add our host to the listing as well. So a listing belongs to a single host. I see we've got co-hosts here, but not super concerned with that. That's going to be our many-to-one collection or relationship. So a host owns a single property, or a host is responsible for a single property, but a host could have many properties. So we'll choose our host profile. Great. Save it. Okay. All right, so let's go in and look at this giant form that we're going to add all of our data. Right now, the really cool part here is I've modeled all this data out, and I'll show you in a moment. I'm just going to copy and paste basically everything from this. If I was smart, I probably would have built like a scraper or something to input all this data. Cool, there we go. We've got the description. When it comes time to the amenities, let's just go ahead and create a new amenity. We've got mountains, view. Yeah, that kind of looks like a mountain view. Mountain view. We could give it a key. That could be helpful if we're actually filtering this on the front end. Dedicated workspace. All right, so I can go through and do a desk icon. Not quite as fancy as what they have here. We'll just use workspace as the key. Cool. Great. So we added some amenities. This is what? This is a entire cabin. Yeah, this looks like a house. This is an entire home. We have up to 4 guests. You can see we've got that nice little note that we had here. So this is just providing that extra little for our user experience. We've got 1 bedroom, 2 beds, 1 bath. Are pets allowed? Do we see pets on this one? Let's say no, right? Check-in time. Where do we find that? We got our check-in time is 4 p.m. 4 p.m. Check-out time 10 a.m. Okay, check-out type. Self-check-in with a lockbox. Do we have a quiet time? I don't see quiet time. I'm going to set quiet time, right? From what, midnight to 5 a.m. I don't know. Great. Additional rules. We can see outside guests, no loud parties. Lots of additional rules at this particular place. We've got the address. I'm not even going to bother filling that out. We'll add some property info. What do we have there? Must climb stairs. That's a great one, right? Must climb stairs. You have to be able to climb some stairs to access the property. Stairs. Oh, we even have a nice stairs icon. Great. We don't have any reviews. We're going to tag this as a cabin in the woods. And then we have our host, right? So we'll just create a new host profile. Who is our host? Sierra. I'm not going to do that. Let's just use like user avatar, sample user avatar. Yeah, this guy looks great. Kind of like Tim Cook or something. Copy image address, upload. We'll call this guy test host and save. All right, so now we've got a listing. The only thing we're actually missing here is some images, right? So I can go back into our listing. I can hit create, and here we can add files to this. And files could be images. We're just going to call it images. That's great. We can even choose what folder we want to upload these things to. So we'll save that. Let's drag it back to the top. Add some images for this. And where'd you go? I'm just going to pick one of these. One of the things that I really like is it's super handy to be able to upload images from a URL here without having to download them. Not sure about you, but I usually get like a million files on my desktop that, just clutter up things after a while. Okay. All right. So now we've created this listing, right? And if I pull up our application, well, we got this really nice Nuxt application. I'm going to just move AirBnB out of my way as well. But if I pull up this application, oh, I closed Directus. Let me bring that back. I still haven't mastered Arc. I'm not sure if you guys are Arc users or not, but it can be a challenge. All right, so we've got Directus, we've got our local host. I'm going to pull up our code base. This is just a standard Nuxt application. I've already got an SDK configured for this. And if I look, I've got an extra leftover page here, but we've got this index page. We've got 100 apps, 100 hours. If I wanted to just use like the async data call from Nuxt. So if I look at the Nuxt documentation, they have a composable in here. use async data for data fetching. And this takes care of things like caching, refreshing. It gives you, like pending state, things like that you can use. So I could potentially just copy this here. We've got use async data. Let's call this listings. So we give it a key. This could be like the actual route, like the full path of the route. But here, I'm going to go in and we are going to do something like this where we say return use Directus. I've got a composable here. And I'm going to read items from the listings collection. The next thing I would add here could be, you see Copilot is already offering some suggestions of, hey, only show me published listings or like the specific fields that I want. Let's not even bother with that at the moment. I may just leave that on there though. Great. Do we have everything we need? Refresh interval. Where am I missing? I don't need refresh interval. Don't really want refresh interval. What is our parser saying? Do I have too many of these? Let's just keep it simple. Oh. Yeah, I'm missing the last one. That's what I was missing. Okay, so now I'm just going to log this out. So if I do data, maybe we wrap it in a pre-tag just to see what that looks like. Are we getting anything back from Directus? No. Why not? Subscripts. Parse error. Use async data listings. We're going to return use Directus read items. That should be what I've got set up here. Use Directus. Use Directus rest? No, it should just be... Oh, do we need to return a wait? Nope. What is the problemo? Let's actually just ditch async data for a moment. Const data equals use await use Directus read items listings. All right, and this should do the fetching here. And now I could see the problem. Nuxt has SSR configured out of the gate, so I wasn't seeing those errors here on the client side. But basically, this is showing 403 forbidden. And the reason why is because I haven't set up my permissions inside Directus. So if I were to just log that back, I could go into Directus, and under our rule-based access control, I'll just go in and for now, and because we're running out of time here anyway, I'm just going to set this to public, all this data that we set up for the individual listings, all of our tags. One of the things that I could do here, right, this is public data, so I don't want to, maybe I want to show the city and like the state or the country, but I could go in and I could set custom permission settings. So where I have I could go in and say, okay, only items that are published will be shown and are available to the public, so without login. But things like street address and postal code, if I was storing data like phone numbers or email addresses, right, I wouldn't want to make that data available to the public. The rest of this data, hey, they need to know, and we probably still want to surface that if they are just browsing the site and they're not logged in. But for the actual sensitive data, I don't want to give that up. All right, we've saved our. Let's just take a look and see what we get back here. Okay, so I can see the listings, right? We're not getting any data. And again, I thought I was using async data wrong here. I need to brush up on its use, but the status of this post is not published. So now if I go in and publish it, because we set up that rule-based access control, now we can see we got some data. It's rendering kind of funky because I'm flexing it. Okay. All right, so now we can see we're actually fetching all the data from our API. So which is really nice. Directus gives us these REST APIs. As soon as we set up our data model, we can see all this information inside here. All right, so if I look at the clock, we've got just a few moments left. Let's go in and just try to flesh something out as far as a detail page. If I look, I've got some images here. How do I actually get access to this relational data? One of the nice things inside Directus is the ability to pass a fields array that will actually act as a GraphQL API. So you get all the benefits of GraphQL, and then I can specify all the fields that I want to return, and I can even grab relational data as deep as I want to go, which you have to be very careful about recursive relationships. But within that, I can go and grab all of that. So if I wanted to grab the root level fields, I could. And I could also do something like this where I say images dot asterisk. That will give me the Directus files ID that I would need to render these types on the site. Yeah, simple enough. All right. Let's flesh this out as quickly as possible. All right, so I'm going to clean that up. What do we have here? Underlying this, I've been using the Nuxt UI library, but I'm always a huge fan of Tailwind UI. If you don't have it, sign up for it. It's a great tool. All right, this is probably, could be similar to a product page, maybe. All right, let's take a look. Product overviews, got a couple of these. I really like this image grid component. Image gallery, let's just lift this wholesale. Ooh, the linter's doing a number on this thing, right? So here we go back. We're probably getting an error somewhere. The Vue DevTools and the Nuxt DevTools, I can't recommend enough. They're very great. But if I go in and I look for my index page, I can see our data that we've got here. And maybe here, I actually want to, where's the key? I think I can actually do something like this where I transform and I do data dot zero. Is that valid? No. Yeah, maybe that's right. No overload. Matches this call. Because we've got the return. Oh, no, I think it needs to be one more out here. Okay, now if I look, data transform. Product.images. Okay. So this is going to be data.images. So if we just clean these up, data.images. Oh, missed one. We'll just clean that up. Data.images.source. Yeah, so we're not getting source here. Are we getting any actual data at all, right? It's not showing me anything in the Vue DevTools. This could be a case of where I spent way too much time data modeling without actually building anything. But at least you will have a good idea of the back-end structure. Zero of undefined. Let's just comment this out. Get our data back. data pre. All right, so we have data.images. Now I got to do data.1. Let's just do this. Our listing equals data. Data.value. And we'll log our listing. Okay, and now I should be able to do something like this where I've got Nuxt image connected to this as well, which is a great tool. So we use Nuxt image, and in the actual config for Nuxt, you can set up the provider for Directus because we use the same underlying library. Where and then I can set the base URL for my assets. So then I don't even have to actually worry about passing the URL. So Nuxt data.images. Is it going to be data? It's listing.images. And then where it says source, we're actually going to grab this Directus files ID. Underscore files underscore ID. Do we actually get images here? If I remove the alt tags, does this actually work? Are we kidding, man? Why do I not have this? Right, if I close this out, why is it not showing images? Directus files underscore ID. Yeah. All right, well, regardless, we hit the timer. I didn't get a very far on the front end on this one. I chalk it up to spending too much time on the back end. But oh, what a back end it is. It's very beautiful. We've got a detailed data model that we've got our REST API for. If you prefer GraphQL, you could query this on the front end to your heart's desire. Again, maybe I was rightfully a little scared of this Airbnb just because of everything that is involved in all the details on this. Anyway, I had a lot of fun with this one. I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for the next episode. Got a great one coming. I'll see you.